With Leo Geeks, and we're here with Michael Tatum, who is a voice actor, who does voice acting for the Orange High School Host Club, and he plays Koya, and for Black Butler, who he plays Sebastian, which is kind of awesome.
Two of many men that I play. So hello. I'm happy to be here. It's very cold in this room. Have you noticed? If you can see our breath, it's because we're doing this in a meat locker. It's the only space available to us right now. It's Sunday at a con. It gets weird, Meat locker interview. This is great.
Anyway, I want to say thank you for interviewing with us.
You're welcome.
When we found out we already got an interview with you, we were really excited.
Awesome. You should wait to thank me until the interview's over. You may regret it before it's all over. I'd have been like, wow, we wish you'd have said no now, actually. Thanks, Tatum.
So our first question is, what inspired you to become a voice actor?
The money and the fame. I mean, all of it is. No, I'm kidding. I've been an actor since I was very little. When I was very, very young, about 5, 6, 7 or so, I had a really bad speech impediment, and it sort of prevented me from speaking much. So I had a speech pathologist who was with me for years, kind of training me to develop my voice and to speak with more confidence. And we found that if I was able to recite something, I commit it to memory and recite it, that my speech impediment tended to disappear. So she thought it'd be a great idea if I pursued stage. She had a lot of ties to community theaters in the area where I grew up, so she encouraged me to go to auditions and would kind of open doors for me. And I loved it. I loved being on stage. Acting quite literally helped me find my voice. So I did it for a long, long time, and then I grew up and didn't do it anymore because, you have to go through that phase in life where you're like, oh, no, I must pay bills and have a horrible job that I hate because that means I'm an adult. You have to give up what you love.
So you have to adult.
I have to adult, and I was terrible at it. I'm still quite bad at it. And then a friend of mine, Christopher Bevins and Clarion Hart, two of them, happened to work at Funimation, and I thought what they did was really cool because I'd always been an anime fan. And one day, after knowing them for several years, they just sort of called me on blue and said, "You used to be an actor. Can we get you to come in and do this thing?" And Christopher was really awesome, but a little scary. Wouldn't take no for an answer because originally I declined. I didn't want to do it because I just didn't think of myself as an actor anymore. And so he got scarier and scarier every time he asked me to come in to audition for the show Samurai 7. And I finally did, and what I thought was an audition wound up actually being us recording the first 6 episodes. So I got tricked into being an actor again. And so it found me again. It's been wonderful ever since. So I love it. I love everything about it. Acting, I'm continually inspired by acting because of the people I get to work with and the people that I get to meet at cons like yourselves. People I would never get a chance to cross paths with in other walks of life. So acting has sort of broadened my horizons and opened a lot of doors. And it's also given me a lot of perspective on myself and on just who I am and how the world works and my place in it. So acting has been a very important growth therapy for me. Like I've learned who I am by getting to pretend to be other people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So have you done anything other than animes?
I do a lot of commercial VO. So if you've heard me, like most recently, I did a CC's Pizza commercial and stuff like this. So my voice is all over the place. I've done. I got to be in a really, really cool fan project for Doctor Who called Doctor Who: The Soldier Stories. It was my first foray into film since I was a teenager. And a lot of stage, so I keep busy. I also adaptive write, so a lot of the shows that I'm in, I also happen to be the lead adaptive writer for the English versions, and things like Attack on Titan, and I actually did some writing on Oron, and many other things. So I keep very busy. I wear a lot of hats. It tends to be how it goes in this industry. You have to wear a lot of hats to be able to make a living at it. So I'm very fortunate to be given the opportunities I have.
So what kind of plays did you do when you were little, like when you started?
The very first play I was in was The Velveteen Rabbit, and I, as a 9-year-old kid, I think, 9, 10, somewhere in there, I got to play the hobby horse, the wise hobby horse who dispenses, wisdom to the Velveteen Rabbit, and it was only because I was the tallest kid who auditioned. But it was great. That was my very first role. I did all kinds of stuff. I was in a production of Death on the Nile when I looked a bit older than I was because I was so tall, so they had me in it playing someone like in their 30s, and I was like, yes, I get to be an adult, and I was like only 14 or 15 at the time. I did musicals. I did a lot of Shakespeare plays, I was nuts for Shakespeare, still am nuts for Shakespeare, and so anytime I had a chance to do something like Shakespeare in the Park or various other incarnations of the Bard all over in that area of town, I would do it. And tons and tons and tons of plays. I want to get back into doing more plays because I missed it. It's very much a poor man's art. It doesn't really pay very well. It's kind of the public don't go see plays like they should anymore, and I wish they did because it's such an immediate, wonderfully galvanizing experience to actually go see a live performance, especially when the actors really believe in the material they're doing and the space is good. But I'd love to get back into that because that energy, there's nothing compares with performing in front of a live audience. It just electrifies you.
So did you love singing the musicals?
No, I didn't. In fact, I'm not a big singer. I was never center stage in a musical. I did chorus and stuff like that, like where I could hide behind other people's voices. I do not have a particularly pleasant singing voice, so I only work well enmeshed with other people. I do like musicals, but being in them is one thing. I would never. My partner is a beautiful singer. He recently did a production of Les Mis where he was Marius, and he was gorgeous. Oh my God, I could listen to him sing all day. He's actually operatically trained, so
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm looking at him every day. I'm like, why am I bothering? I'm not gonna do that. Like, why would I? I can't sound like that, so why bother? I'm nowhere near that talented, so no. I'm just gonna sit. I'm gonna be an actor. And you be the actor-singer.
So, if you hadn't become a voice actor or an actor, what would you have seen yourself doing other than this?
I flirted with the idea of being an architect because I really love architecture and that, and I looked into studying it to become an architect. It's kind of an odd thing to think. Oh, acting architecture. I didn't get very far in the alphabet of potential. But I would have also. I'm also a classically trained pianist. I dropped out of conservatory, so I'm classically trained to a point. I actually have been playing since I was 6 years old, and I'd probably be doing something musical, something creative and artistic. I'm not very good at any other things. The stuff. I'm not very life competent either. I'm the creative, flaky type. That's just who I am. So some sort of job where I get to be like that guy, or I just be a hermit living
in a fashion
designer. I'm a fashion designer. I don't know. I can't sew. I can't
you can design.
sew. I can draw pictures of things that no one would ever wear.
If you could portray any other character in anime or like in a movie, who would it be?
I'd love to do Shakespeare. I'd love to revisit Shakespeare again. I'd love to be like Richard III. I played Richard III a long time ago for production in high school, and I love that. He's one of my favorite Shakespeare villains because he's so mustache twirling and so evil and so aware of how evil he is. And those characters can be quite fun to play because there's such a departure from who you are as a person. Like, I would never do anything mean because I can't, but it's so nice, such therapy to be able to be that guy on stage where there are no consequences. But I think, as an actor, I try not to think about what I'd want to do because I like to I kind of keep this Zen attitude to see what comes my way. And I love pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. So whenever a character or the chance to play in a show that is not something I would ever have seen for myself, that I would have imagined for myself, I take it because I think, again, acting is all about kind of cultivating inward perspectives, and the more characters, the more different and unique characters I get to kind of inhabit, the more I think it changes me as a person, and that's why I do it. I love it. So I just kind of like to see what happens. I like to see what characters come my way, and it's always an honor to get to tell their stories. So.
That's awesome. So when you do your characters, do you stay in character constantly, or do you like...
No, oh God, no. There's nothing more annoying. Than people that just stay. No, I'm serious. Like, there are times when you try to stay in character, and I used to be very method. So method acting is when you really draw extensively on personal experience to kind of give a credible performance. And it's a very powerful tool, but sometimes the line between the character and you gets obliterated and you go a little psychotic and don't know how to... I experienced this on the show Steins Gate, which is a wonderful show. It's absolutely... I've gotten to be in a lot of amazing shows, but Steins Gate is far and away the best thing I've ever gotten to be part of. I worked on it as an adaptive writer, and then I got to play the lead role, which was in itself stressful because there's nothing like being in a show that you're also writing, because then there's no one to blame but you if it doesn't work. You're like, who wrote this crap? Oh, I did. Who acted? Oh, I did. So it's all my fault. But it's a really emotionally raw show. It's a very, very realistic show, and it's beautiful. It was an enormously transformative experience to get to work on it as a writer and then again as an actor. But because there was a lot of overlap between the two, like we would write the first six scripts, for example, and then we'd start recording them, and then while we were recording them, we'd be writing the next 6 scripts. So I never really got a chance to get away from the show. I'd go in for 8 hours a day to record him, and come home and have to write a script for the same show for about 5 to 6 hours and go to bed and just wash, rinse, repeat. And I couldn't get away from it. I couldn't find that space to just find me again. So all my friends knew that just for 4 months, I'm just going to be this guy. He's just me now, and I don't know where he ends and I begin. So just deal with it. And everyone was like, well, okay, by dealing with it, we're going to leave you alone. And it was such an emotional experience that when the show gets dark, he goes through some really grueling experiences in the show. And I had a breakdown in the booth. I actually had a breakdown that we decided after much deliberation to leave in, and because it was such a real thing, they were like, we're just going to leave that A, because I thought it worked really, really well, and B, because I didn't want to do it again. And it just happened to fit, so we're like, awesome, we're going to use Tatum's breakdown. So if you ever want to see me have an emotional breakdown or hear me have an emotional breakdown, episode 14 of Steins Gate, boys and girls, you've been warned. That's actually just me in the booth crying. So what was your question? No, yes, so I used to be very, very method, and like I said, method can be really difficult because you suddenly you find yourself not in control of the character and the performance anymore because you kind of get lost in it. And so now I'm more trying to kind of back off from that and be more kind of Chekhov. That's another school of acting where you just use your imagination. It's a great story of Dustin Hoffman and Laurence Olivier, the great Laurence Olivier, were in a movie together in which Laurence Olivier had to torture Dustin Hoffman, and Dustin Hoffman was very method, so he got into this mode where, like, before he was going to do this really intense torture scene with Laurence Olivier, he didn't sleep for 2 days. He didn't eat. He was just a mess. So he shows up, and of course he has been torturing himself for 2 days, and the scene works incredibly well. And Sir Laurence Olivier, who was this major, Shakespearean actor, had played all the principal roles in Shakespeare, had been with the RSC for years and years and years, was very one of the greatest actors of his generation, turned to Dustin Hoffman after the scene was wrapped and said, "Oh, you did a really wonderful job. Next time, try acting." So I've always remembered that whenever I get a little too involved in a role.